Well, the best thing about 2012 for the New Orleans Saints is that it's over. It was a tough year for the franchise. The difficulty began well before Week 1. I'm talking, of course, about the Bountygate scandal. You all know the story. No need to rehash it now. It resulted in the suspensions of several coaches and players, most notably head coach Sean Payton, who was forced to sit out the entire 2012 season. Now, I know Saints fans were hoping that once the game started, the players would be able to block out those off-the-field distractions and have another good year. Unfortunately, that did not happen. After 3 straight seasons in which they won at least 11 games, the Saints lost their first 4 games in 2012 and finished with a 7-9 record. In diagnosing what went wrong, it's real easy. The defense. The Saints had the worst defense in the NFL last year, and it wasn't close. They were the worst in the league by a wide margin. The Saints allowed 440 yards per game. To put that into perspective, the next to worst defense in the NFL, which happened to be the New York Giants, who finished 31st in yards per game allowed, they allowed a full 57 yards per game fewer than the Saints. Let me repeat that. The New Orleans Saints in 2012 allowed 57 more yards per game than any other defense in the NFL. That is astounding. They were 31st against the pass, 32nd, dead last against the run. There was nothing to like about this defense, and that's why Steve Spagnuolo has been fired after only 1 year as defensive coordinator, replaced by Rob Ryan. Ryan is the latest example of one man's trash being another man's treasure. Ryan was just fired by the Dallas Cowboys a few weeks ago, but he said he would be employed for, quote, like 5 minutes after he was fired by the Cowboys, and he was basically right. Had no trouble finding work. He is with the Saints now. Ryan's worked for several franchises around the league, and he's a respected defensive guy. He's already said he will be making some schematic changes in New Orleans. The Saints are going to be changing to a base 3-4 defense instead of a 4-3 team. The Saints have been a 4-3 team for a long time, 10 or 15 years anyway. It's been a long time since you've seen them running a base 3-4 defense, but we're going to see that next year. Now, some tweaks and schematic changes that could make a difference, and I have no doubt that the Saints are going to be better on defense next year than they were last year, primarily because they can't be any worse than they were in 2012. I guarantee you they're not going to give up 440 yards per game again. But how much better can a new coach make this defense that was so bad? I mean, can Rob Ryan really turn this, from the worst defense in the league into a top half of the league unit? I think without new players, the answer to that is no. And as far as new players go, the Saints are in a tough position. With their salary cap situation, they're scheduled to be around $15 million over the cap right now. It's not a matter of which players the Saints want to go out and get. It's a matter of which big-name veteran players the Saints are going to be able to retain, whose contracts they're going to be able to restructure, who they're going to have to release. Some of that is happening. There are going to be tough decisions in New Orleans in the coming weeks. I'm talking about guys like linebacker Jonathan Vilma, defensive end Will Smith, safety Roman Harper, cornerstones of this Saints defense who are all aging. They're all due a lot of money. So we'll see. We'll see if they're a part of the future. I'm sure Rob Ryan certainly hopes like guys like Will Smith. Will Smith, even though he's aging, is still playing at a high level, and it's important the Saints are able to keep a guy like that. Now, because they're not going to be able to do anything in free agency, I do look for the Saints to bolster that defense through the draft. They have the 15th pick in the first round of April's draft, and I would be shocked if they don't spend the 15th pick on a defensive player. The reason I say I'd be shocked is they don't need any help on offense. This is a great offense. They're fun to watch. They finished second in the NFL in yards per game last year, first in passing offense, third in scoring offense. There's no team in the league who can claim that they play better offense than the New Orleans Saints, and only a couple of teams can claim to be on the same level. Drew Brees played an extremely high level again last year, even though he wasn't quite as efficient as he was in 2009, 2010, or 2011. A lot of that could be because the Saints didn't run the ball quite as well or quite as frequently as they had in the past. And I think that could be because Sean Payton was not directly involved in the play calling. I think that is going to change next year. I think the Saints offense is going to have a little bit more balance next year, even though it still will revolve around Drew Brees and that passing game. And after all, it should, because when Drew Brees has them spread out and he's attacking that defense and he is on, outside of maybe Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, these guys are no better than Drew Brees. They're just on the same level. I have great faith in Drew Brees and this New Orleans Saints offense, and because of the faith I have, I think the Saints, they won't be down for long. 7-9 last year. You watch. They will be back to their winning ways in 2013 in spite of this defense. And I don't expect the Saints defense to all of a sudden turn into a great or even good defense. As we said, they were terrible last year, and they're in a tough position in terms of improving this defense. But if they can improve just a little, even if they could just force more turnovers. Remember, when the Saints won the Super Bowl a few years back, it's not that they had a great defense, it's just that they were an opportunistic defense. They forced some turnovers. Just a little bit of positive momentum, a little bit of better play from that defense, and the Saints will be right back in the playoff picture. And I think that Rob Ryan and maybe an addition or two through the draft will be enough to maybe push that defense in the right direction and make the Saints a contender once again. So the Saints were down in 2012, there's no question about it, but I think better times are right around the corner.